This week in the conversation, I have the privilege to welcome out of Mumbai, India, impeccable filmmaker, Indrani Ray. She's going to talk to me about her trilogy, Love in the Times of Corona. Interesting. But before we get into this video, I just want to remind you, it's important to subscribe to this YouTube channel. Please subscribe to it. Let me know exactly what you think of in the comment sections. And also, if you subscribe, don't forget to click the notification bell so that way every time a video is posted, it'll go directly into your portable. So let's get started.
छह महीने हो गए अब सब लोग ऐसे ही बैठे हैं घर में।
Please keep safe, Ma. And don't forget to wear a mask when someone comes.
My uncle just got his first job.
Despite lockdown, the number has only been going up.
It's scary, but I guess it's great that people are reaching out at least, right?
Don't you miss Reva?
We live in hope.
Again, my name is Ardain Isma, and I'm here this morning or this evening with a very impressive filmmaker, executive producer, Indrani Ray. She's joining me from Mumbai, India. Interesting. We're going to be talking about her fantastic trilogy, Love in the Times of Corona. Indrani, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. And it's such a lovely, warm introduction. Thank you so much. It's really good. Looking forward to chatting with you.
Okay. So would you please tell the viewers of CSMS magazine who is Indrani Ray?
I'm always stumped when I'm asked that question. I think, we are all sum of parts. I think the one thing that's relevant right now is I think I'm a film fiend. I love cinema, which is something, like growing up, I'm a Bengali, so I'm from the land of Satyajit Ray. And growing up, of course, there was an attachment with films, intellectually, but I always wanted to be in advertising.
Okay.
And then one fine day, I kind of decided, after being in advertising, doing all of that I want to make films. And I told my parents, I'm quitting my job. I want to make films. And they're like, you want to make ad films? Because I was in advertising. I said, no, I want to make feature films. And they were like, okay, but they're supportive. They're wonderfully supportive. So Indrani Ray is a film fiend who gave up a job to pursue her passion. I think that is how I would, in a nutshell, describe myself.
And Indrani, you're not the only one. Every single filmmaker that I have as a guest in the conversation tells me the same thing.
Right.
They quit professional job just to pursue the dream of becoming feature filmmakers. It's the same thing when I interview Rose from Miami. It's the same thing when I interview the British Bulgarian, Kokinov. It's the same thing when I interview these two young ladies from LA. It's the same thing. They drop everything to pursue. So what is so magical in the pursuit of filmmaking?
I think very personally, I think the joy of finding something that absorbs you so in its entirety, like, you're just like, that's the bullseye, that's your target, and it kind of possesses you. I think that is magical for anything to have that hold over you. When you're going through a little bit of a bumpy road, it doesn't deter you. You're not going off course. I think film has that magic at that level personally, and creatively. I feel what I find really exciting is that it is something that comes from a single vision, right? A writer, I'm a writer director, so I write my own scripts. But then I need a whole bunch of really talented people to come together on my page and then create that one thing that you got to see on your screen, right? As opposed to a painting, which is between the artist and the canvas, and it is his personal vision or her personal vision, and they're drawing and painting it. But here you need that collective to make your vision come true, and that is just so mad. I think it's exciting, you know.
Exactly. It's just like also writing a novel. You have to edit, revise, and revising, and at some point you have to call it. So is that what happens to you sometimes, Indrani?
So yes, you know, I also have these, I think any writer, I think will have these phases when you're in this zone and you're writing, and then you have this conversation in your head, okay, stop. Because you don't also want to, see, for a film, what happens is, it is one step removed, right? Once you finish the script, you're making the film. So you have to make sure you're not juiced out in the writing process.
I like
so
that.
You have nothing to, you know, you have nothing to contribute when you're making the film then. So you have to keep that bit kind of fresh so that when you're going on the floor, the energy is still fresh. You know, it hasn't kind of become like blah. You know, like, oh, I've run, oh, I have nothing fresh to give this, oh, it's done. So you have to kind of retain that so the magic kind of stays intact. So I think that is a battle at times. You know, you just have 2 a.m. You're like, okay, Indrani, just shut this down. Shut. And then you're like, okay, you know. So it's interesting, yeah. But I enjoy the process. You know, I enjoy the process.
No, let's stick with the process for a second, Indrani, because I know, as an executive producer, you also direct the auditioning process. So how do you feel when you have to tell an actor or an actress, somehow you're great, but you just don't fit what we're trying to portray at the moment?
You know, so for this lot of films, I have cast people who we didn't audition. You know, they were all very established in their field.
Okay.
And what I like to do is, you know, I have auditioned for my feature film in the past. And what I like to do is, which I'm told not a lot of people do that, unfortunately, is if they don't work, then I actually have because they have given me time, right? I need to respect the time they're giving my audition. And I don't think I should have the arrogance to say, oh, you know what, you don't work for me, so get lost. No, I mean, I need to respect that person's time, energy, hard work. So, you know, so I have actually called people and actually had conversations with actors saying why they didn't work, what they needed to do. And I said, you know, I'm not a named filmmaker, so you may dismiss what I'm telling you, but I think I owe you feedback as to what happened, you know. So that's what I try to show. You know, I expect grace from people, so I need to show grace to get grace, right? Otherwise, how does it work?
Exactly. You know, Indrani, I research your work, your works, and I can see you are a perfectionist. So
thank you.
The title, a short hello, dinner lockdown, and tea and a rose. So did I just say put in the order how you produced them? Was a short hello the first one?
Short hello was the first one. Tea and a rose was the second one, and dinner in lockdown was the third one. Yes.
Okay. Now my question, so because I watched them several times. The short hello is very intriguing because there's hardly any dialogue between the protagonist and whoever she's communicated with, but somehow the message is within what is not explicitly said. You know what? There's an old saying that say that unsaid words speak louder than pronounced words. Was that what you're trying to portray?
I do believe in that too. I believe that silence is the best sound. and unsaid words are the best dialogues, so you'll see all my films are a little lesser on the dialogue side. They're not dialogue heavy in that sense. And the first film, it was actually, my original script was set in a cafe. It still didn't have dialogues, but it had people. It was set in a cafe where this guy's there and she's there. And then I had that script written. I had the artist, Dipanita, she's a known supermodel actor in Bombay. She was attached to the film because she wanted to work with me. She likes my vision as a creative person. And then Tanvi is someone I have been in touch with over the years. We were supposed to work together, which didn't pan out. And just at the beginning of lockdown, Tanvi and we were talking, and she's like, listen, do you have a short film script? I said, I do, actually. She said, listen, Indrani, let's just make it. So she kind of, galvanized the whole process, because Dipanita and I have been talking. So it always, you're stronger in numbers, you're stronger together. So it was really that. When Tanvi's like, listen, let's do this. And I was like, yeah, hey. I said, you know what? But it's set in a cafe, and you cannot make and this was peak lockdown, Dr. Isma. This was literally July 2020, when the whole world was shut down. Okay. So I said, we cannot make someone's home look like a cafe. It'll look horrible. So I need to change the setting of the story.
Right.
So then I took the story into her home, and Dipanita was very gracious. She and her husband. Okay.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's her home, So Dipanita and her husband, their magnanimity, I'm just so bowled over by that, because they opened their doors at a time when people were not letting people in, right? Because it was peak lockdown. So I took the story into her home. I made the male character, I turned him into a photograph. And interestingly, that photograph is of Dipanita's husband's, actually. I said, let's just, yes. And then I knew that I would be able to handle the styling of it and all remotely, because, if you know what you're making, you can make things work. So I kind of did the setting up and styling via Zoom and FaceTime. I had an associate. I just had we worked with a 2-member crew. My associate director and the DOP, the director of photography. There were the 2 people on ground, and I was on Zoom directing it. And I just worked with Dipanita before the shoot, because I said, we are capturing a day in your life, which has become routine now because you're home in lockdown. And you have had time to kind of ruminate over your personal journey and life, which is something normal day-to-day life doesn't allow us. I think the lockdown allowed us the luxury of thinking about ourselves, the fortunate ones, Right. So I said, so I need your walk to be like, when you're on camera, it shouldn't look like you're just now doing this. It should look like it's something that you do every day.
Beautiful. Yeah.
So we just did that whole physical mapping and that rehearsal. And so on the day of the shoot, we just shot.
The one thing I really like, Andrea, you just take ordinary people and you turn them into superheroes. And I like
Thank you. Thank you so much. That's so kind of you. It's really, you're making a story and then you just see, and yes, my stories have a lot of messaging couched in it of things that I believe in, and they willy-nilly will always find their way into my writing, whether I'm doing it intentionally or not. They just end up being there. Right. But it is so nice when it, finally, I think, what is a film? It should resonate with the person watching it. Otherwise, why am I making it? So it's so wonderful when people say they connect to some aspect of the story, and that is the most satisfying thing for any filmmaker. I feel that your story has made a connection.
And you know what? I'm not surprised once I know that Tea and a Rose won an award at the Chicago South Asian Film Festival. I'm not surprised, because I know. Watching it, I can tell you that. I watched it 3 times. And the 3rd time, I pulled my wife into it. So, yeah.
So, that makes me so happy.
Yeah, and I'm very happy to the fact that it was chosen as, you were awarded for it.
Thank you.
And also I understand there's another one too, which was among the top 10 in London. So how do you feel that, Indrani, that your works have been recognized by others?
It feels good. It feels like, because when I quit my job, it was an instinct which was triggered by a meeting I had with a film producer in Bombay. I was heading this celebrity management outfit very briefly, and I had gone for a meeting, and this gentleman who was a part of old Bollywood, and he'd said, Indrani, you have a sense of cinema.
Mm-hmm.
And that gentleman happened to be the father of one of our biggest stars today, Amir Khan, who's a big Bollywood star.
Okay.
His father, this elderly gentleman, he's like, you understand films. You should get into films. You should work on films. And I said, no, I'm a corporate person. I'm an outsider. But that stayed in my head. And a couple of years down the line, I'm sitting in my apartment one evening and I'm like, should I give it a shot? Should I see if I can see a story? So it was just this, and when you're younger, you can just take these decisions, mad decisions, without thinking what's ahead and what's behind. And I think when it is appreciated, it is kind of a reflection of your, or rather a validation of your self-belief in a way that,
Mm-hmm.
okay, so it's all good. It is because you chuck a very successful career to pursue something. A lot of people think you are absolutely nuts. Like, I have friends telling me, if you had stayed in advertising, today you would have been like top of the heap, blah, blah, blah. I said, yeah, but I don't regret it. I said, I'm just so happy I found films, or films found me. Like Spielberg says, your passion comes at you from nowhere and grabs you and doesn't let you go. I think films for me was that. It came at me out of nowhere and then just did not let me go, So appreciation feels, I think, more than me, I think, even, people who are close to me or my family, my parents, they feel like, okay, this is good. Okay, she's not entirely as mad. She's mad, but not as mad as we thought she is, So I think it's a validation of my self-belief, and it's a validation for other people to see that it was not that mad a choice. It has been a slightly uphill climb, but it is, I think it's worth it.
I can see that. Let's talk about screenwriting for a second. Let me ask you a question. Do you think screenwriting is just the same as writing novelistic prose?
No,
Yeah.
It isn't. It isn't. I used to think, so that is something, I'm a self-taught technician, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I learned, of course, I have studied literature. So, you have a certain hold over the language and all of that. And,
Right.
So great. And when I wrote my first draft, when I go back and read it today, I cringe and I'm so embarrassed because I had no idea how to write a film script.
Really?
A film script has to be, there are things, like you don't give out too much information, you don't foreshadow too much. And I think the two things that I follow now, having learned it over the years, is that show, not tell. So I always try to see what word I can swap with an action or a reaction or a look on a face, so just take the words out, give me an expression, and don't spoon feed the audience. The other thing is that always start a scene as late as you can and end it as fast as you can, so that the audience doesn't lose interest in your scene and the story.
Okay.
So that is a fundamental difference between, I think, a novel and a film script. Yes.
And you know what, to reinforce what you just say, I have a Gabriel Constant. He's a screenwriter and also a novelist. He lives in California. He wrote a story, and then he marketed the story, which was picked up by Prison Pictures out of LA. And then he said he wrestled throughout the whole project with the film producer, because many things of the book were simply taken out because of the fact that they had to do it in the way, just like you just explained it, so it could be accepted, in a feature filming production.
And what happens? They also say that a feature film is it is finite. It is it's 120 minutes or 100 minutes or 150 minutes. So in that, you need to see, okay, you need to have enough to keep the audience engaged, but not that much that they'll get confused. If you have too many things going on, and I'm like looking as an audience, like, oh my God, what's happening? Oh, but why? So I think you try to contain that as much as you can so that the audience stays with your characters and your stories and connects with it. So I think not for the superhero franchise. I think that's an exception, but generally speaking, I think that's the thing.
And Indrani, I know love in the times of Corona almost sound like the same love in the time of cholera. And I can see, because one of your characters also holds Marquez's book, right? Because when my friend John Rasmi told me about love in the times of Corona, immediately what came to mind is love, because I read the book, because I love Marquez a lot. Is that the same thing for you?
Lovely. Yes, totally. I mean, I come from a house which has been filled with all kinds of literature. I've grown up reading a whole variety of stuff, which is, I think, such a blessing. Today in hindsight, I see that, that is my foundation, is that the exposure I had to, whether it is my mother tongue, Bengali, and reading Bengali literature, or Hindi or English translations of, French literature. So I think that exposure. So Marquez is also one of my mums. I'm influenced by my mother a lot in the literary area. So Marquez is a writer that my mother introduced me to when I was pretty young. O. Henry and Marquez are two of her favorite authors in world literature. So he absolutely loved it. And I've always been fascinated by the title of the book, and I thought it lent itself so well. And then I said, I want to bring in the book here and make it a part of the narrative in a meaningful way. Uh-huh. And so yeah, a lot of my nostalgia kind of plays out in my films. My love for black and white. I would keep on making black and white films.
I can see that. Whenever you come to New York now, we're going to do a Zoom again to tell about your project now.
Done. That's a promise. Yes, hopefully, keeping fingers crossed for this year. We are working on it. We are working with the team in LA, actually, okay. who are excited to work with us. Okay. My whole thing is, I wish I had mentioned it in the interview. My whole thing is to create brown people's stories for the global platform and take those stories out there and show people different parts of India, which we don't show that often. So that is my whole thing, that take brown people's stories, whether it's set in London, Bombay, Delhi, Rajasthan, wherever, take brown people's stories and make it for the world to see, so they get to know us a little better.
And you know what, Indrani, because I know no one would know best than any other person who's involved in the movie industry. If I were to ask you a question, who you would consider as your preferred film producer? It doesn't have to be Indian, it could be anyone.
Producer? Mm-hmm. I think any producer, like Tanvi, my producing partner, she's a very good producer for me to work with, because I think rather than the name of a producer or a named producer, I think a producer has to get you. They have to get you, they have to get your sensibility, they have to understand why you are asking for what you're asking for. Like, Dinner in Lockdown, and short films don't have a lot of budget. Right. But Dinner in Lockdown was set, the family was of a certain profile. So I needed a home. So when I told Tanvi that, that is the house I want. And it was a model apartment, in literally one of Mumbai's most expensive real estate. Okay. But she literally burnt her blood to get me that property because she knew why I needed it. I think that is what makes a good producer. Uh-huh. That you will get the director's vision and support it.
And what's her name?
Tanvi Gandhi.
Tanvi Gandhi. Okay, Tanvi Gandhi. I know you mentioned that also, and I saw that. Yeah. So, my last question: if someone, would want to pursue his or her career and choosing film, but knows nothing about producing films, what lesson would you give that person?
Producing is something, you really need to start somewhere. See, from the creative aspect, again, I'm a self-taught filmmaker. So, if you love it, you watch, you read, you devour like stuff to hone your craft. But producing is because it needs some groundwork. You need to understand how that works. So you need to start somewhere. You need to train with a production company and then make your way. Production is something you need to learn because it is also a special skill. I don't think people give production enough credit. I think it's a special skill to get something made properly. So I think it is always good to then get working, and learn the tricks and learn what like even from a direction point of view, when I quit my job and I was doing the kind of work I chose to do was stuff that would take me to a film shooting floor, so I could see how people work, to learn what not to do. I think learning what not to do is so much more than learning what to do. What to do is not that hard. What not to do is more important to know, because that is where you can fall. So to know what not to do, I think is a big lesson.
And you know what's going to bring me? I just said last question, because of what you say. I just have another question. Because usually I get flagged by my viewers every time, I have a nice conversation. And then in the end, I never ask the author to tell about future projects. So I can't let you go, Indrani, without asking you, what is the project, or what are the projects you're currently working on?
So right now I'm working on a small music video, which I'll probably shoot end of this month or early next month in Bombay. Okay. And I'm Tanvi and I are together again working on my rom-com feature set in New York with diverse brown ethnicity characters, but it's like a mainstream romance. It has no angst. It is not a sad story. And there are a couple of other things brewing, which early days, but different genres. I love telling stories, so it is across stuff, but always with people and relationships, which is something I enjoy playing with. So
these are the two projects you're working on right now.
These are the two projects right now, 2022. These are the two projects we are laser focused on, yes.
And with that, I'm just going to say it's been more than just a pleasure to receive impeccable film producer, screenwriter, executive producer, Indrani Ray, joining me from Mumbai.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. And thank you so much once again for having me. Really, it was lovely talking to you. Thank you so much, Dr. Isma.